Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all doing well. We are well and truly in to our spring floral botanical season here on my channel. Now, if you remember the last video, I had one mold and I made a ton of castings using different mediums, one of which was silicone. I decided to try and make some rose silicone inlays. They came out a dream, fully was not expecting it. However, the real test here is to see, will they work inside resin? And I knew that this was the first project I wanted to try. I've got two itty bitty cutesy wootsy little rose inlays, and I've got the larger inlay. These are all from the Katie Sue Rose mold, which is linked in all of my Amazon storefronts, apart from Canada. I kind of couldn't find it in Canada. I'm so sorry, but I've got an alternative there for you. Now, the bigger rose is going to go into this round pendant on the left. This was a pendant mold bought for me by one of my amazing patrons, Paul. Thank you so much again. And we're going to be using the Estoyo resin. Now, I am an affiliate for Estoyo. I'm loving the resin, so that is all linked below for you. And the miniature roses are going to go into the mold that I made using the glass cabochons. And don't forget your PPE. I do not mention it enough, but I do wear my respirator whenever I am working with resin. Now, this Estoyo resin is 1:1, part A, part B, measurable by volume. Unfortunately, my calibrated cups just don't go low enough. Like, I really need a tiny amount. So I'm going to eyeball it. I'm going to pour part A into the left, part B into the right, and kind of like get down on the side of my desk just to eyeball that I've got equal parts. Then I mix them both together for approximately 5 minutes until they are fully combined. Now, this next step is optional. I said in my last video that I planned to use a pipette and try to get the resin in and down, like in all around those petals, in every nook and cranny of these inlays. I didn't know at this point if that was going to be beneficial. I just was trying to eliminate the risk of air bubbles, like huge giant air bubbles being trapped down inside these inlays, and I pretty much did that to both of the little roses as well. Again, I'm not sure how beneficial this would be if I just put the inlay straight into resin. Would it really be that bad? I just figured I would do what I could to minimize the risk, and then I hit them with my heat gun just to get that resin to go down and in. We're also going to repeat this step just before putting them in, but yeah, again, it might be one of those things that is not necessarily needed. Once I'd done that, I took them out of the molds and put the resin into the molds as much as I needed to. So really at this point, I wasn't sure how much resin to put in, because when you put the roses in, that's going to push the resin out, and we definitely don't want any spillages. So just play it by eye, eyeball it. Yeah, see what you think, how much you will need. Once I'd got that all in there, I just gave them a quick heat blast, because again, I have got bubbles in my resin, stirring way too fast, stirring for too long, and it was a little bit chilly this day. So just to minimize any of those bubbles, give them a little bit of a whack with the heat. Now, this is where I flip the rose upside down and lay it in my resin. So I'm just taking out some of that resin with my pipette, putting it back in the rose, because of course some of it has flowed straight out, and then I'm flipping my rose upside down into my resin and hoping for the best. I'm not gonna lie, the rose was a little bit skew-iffy and a little bit on the wonk. It was a little bit to the right, so like not all of the rose was in the resin, and I knew that from the off. So yeah, that's a downside to having something that is kind of made to look natural. Then none of them are actually symmetrical and flat. I did the same with the teeny itty bitty ones, and I put them down into my DIY mold that I made of the glass cabochons to fit into the bezels. Now, in the third one, I had leftover resin, so I figured I would go grab the polyurethane rose that I made with the alcohol inks, one of my favorite results from that video, and I simply pushed this down into the resin. Now, the downside to this was that this rose was big and chunky, and it was already protruding out of the surface of the resin. So if this does turn out okay and we do go ahead and use it, we will need to sand that back down to fit into the bezel. Now, one of the powders I'm going to use is going to be from this brand new set. This was just sent to me by Estoyo, so thank you so much, Estoyo. This is their entire mica powder selection. There's so many here, and I really wanted a red mica powder. And a few of you told me that the Estoyo red is really good, so I'm going to test it out and have a play with that today. And I'm going to be using some other products as well. Now, this was 24 hours later. It was time to peel out my inlay and hope for the best. It was a case of going slowly, peeling really slowly, like teasing that silicone rose out. But guys, we got stuck. I was so sad. I was like, no. You know, that slow motion. No. Luckily, it did all come away. There's no silicone left inside the rose, which is beautiful. However, oh my gosh, guys, we ripped the inlay, which is actually a little bit devastating because I will have to cut that section off if I want to risk it. If I want to risk it, I'll have to cut that section off to use it next time. Then I did the same with the little bitty ones. Now, these came out so much easier, like so much easier, no stress. I couldn't have been happier with the way these came out, and they left the most beautiful embossings in the resin. And yeah, really happy with the itty bitty ones. And sadly, the big one didn't quite go right, but hey, they're out of the resin and we have rose inlays. Now, as for the polyurethane one, I just have to take this out right now because there's nothing more I can do to this. And my initial thought was gorgeous. Second thought was, wow, are those bubbles? I did not spend enough time trying to release the bubbles from this resin, but equally the rose itself looks gorgeous. So after a nice sanding, you could quite happily, you know, use black resin or black nail varnish on the back of that to make it pop. First up, into the big rose, we're going to use a couple of colours from the Let's Resin Intense Chameleon powders. Again, if you do anything like this and you have silicone inlays, whatever colours you use are entirely down to you and your freedom of choice. I just decided to go dark and moody on this one. I didn't want to make it like a generic pink, red, yellow, rose colour. I just wanted to try something a little bit different. Now you can see here the rose itself didn't quite fully make contact with the resin. It was definitely wonky and off to the side, and there was really nothing I could do about that. Maybe I could have laid sellotape across the top and taped it to the table to really squish it down in, but I guess I just didn't think of that at the time, to be honest. Next up has to be, guys, it has to be the ballet slipper. You guys know if I could marry a mica powder, I would be marrying the ballet slipper from Just For You Online. It is the most delicate, pretty colour of 2024 as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not even a pink girl. So we've got two reds here. We've got the watermelon red and the red, and I'm not very good with reds, I'll be honest with you. I might be a little bit colourblind. I remember doing a test in school and he said you are slightly colourblind to reds. Who knew? So yeah, the watermelon red just looked a bit redder to me than the other red, so we're gonna see what it's like. Once I had put all of my powders in, I decided to go around all of the outside edges. So around the big one, around the red, and eventually I did do around the pink rose with a cotton bud and some alcohol. I was trying to take away the remaining powders from around the outside edge because I want the backing colour to be shown through. Now for the backing colour, again, it's entirely up to you. Usually with mica powders, we say use black because it makes it pop. But because I'm using such a delicate pink, I didn't really want to use black. So I figured I would use white, and white background goes really well with the intense chameleon powders because they're so intense. You don't necessarily need a black background. So I am using the white polyurethane from Let's Resin. Again, you can use epoxy or anything else you fancy, but this is just for speed purposes and speed purposes only. This is a 30-second mix and a 10 to 15 minute demold polyurethane resin, and it just worked a dream. My initial thought on this one in the pink mold was, eek, I haven't done a very good job of cleaning it up. Equally, the powder is coming out of the rose and into the polyurethane, so it was only a matter of time to see if that was going to have an impact on the final results. And honestly, this stuff cures in front of your very eyes. I left my camera rolling and I walked away, and I came back 10 minutes later, and of course everything was cured. But I do like to leave the footage in because I think it's so cool to watch. This was about 20 minutes later, and it was time to demold. Of course, they all pop out so easily from this mold. The edges of this mold are a little bit scraggly and a little bit messy, which means whatever you create, you're going to have to kind of like neaten up the edges. My initial thoughts were, wow, and then, I'm not so sure. The pink is beautiful and pretty and delicate and all of those things. The red rose looks very cool. However, it was at this point I was questioning whether or not it was really worth using the inlays at all. This one I put into the bezel, so the cabochons and the bezels go together. And honestly, this was giving me little ballerina vibes. Like, if you've got a little ballerina in the family, how cute would this be as a little gift? Oh my gosh, so adorable. What I didn't like was the fact that the white polyurethane could be seen around the edge. I didn't quite fill up those molds, and I wish I had. I wish I'd filled them right to the very top, bar like 1 millimeter. Because what's happened is the polyurethane has gone down the sides, and you can see it from the front, and that's not what I wanted. Now, they are very cool. I just don't know if I love them enough to do this again. I just don't think it would be worth it. I think what would be cool is to make the roses with the resin, like we said in the last video. Don't know if it's going to be worth making inlays, but hey, we've done it now. So let me know what you think. Would you still go ahead and make an inlay and just get these almost faded results? This one here, however, oh my goodness me. My initial thought was elusive, ghostly, haunting rose. Like, it just looks haunting. Those greens are not popping, but it's there. You know, these molds are matte, so we definitely have to give this a top coat. But equally, where I didn't do a very good job of cleaning up around the edge, some of that mica, it's like a murky, muddy rose, and I am obsessed with this result, and that might come as a surprise to so many of you. For me, this looks like an oil painting. This looks like a white canvas with a haunted rose that has been painted in oils, and the edges are just fading out into the canvas. That's what this reminds me of. So weirdly, this is my favorite result of all of them. The rose that nearly never made it, the rose that nearly got stuck and we never saw it again. I love it. I absolutely love the murkiness of it. Is anyone feeling my angle here? Like, is anyone understanding where I'm coming from with this? It reminds me of, I tell you what it reminds me of. It reminds me of an IKEA wall art print, or a Desenio wall art print. Anyone else? In certain lights, you can see those murky undertones of those greens, and it just looks like mud. It looks like a rose that has been trapped in mud, and I love it. There's a couple of bubbles in there. So again, I think it was worth putting the resin in to the inlay before flipping it upside down. I think we would have got a hell of a lot more bubbles if we didn't do that. But oh my gosh, I am loving this one. This is Halloween. Like, this is murky, dark, moody, all of that. And these are little pretty ones. These are little pretty ones that I'm not in love with. I am just not in love with. However, this one here with the red rose, that has definitely inspired me to try something else as well. Sometimes when I do something, I think, oh, actually, I'm going to try that but in a different way. Yeah. Not my favourite results, I'm afraid, on those ones, so definitely not obsessed. But the dark rose, that is a bit of me. Yes, please. Even this one, not a fan, not loving it. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I'm often surprised when people say the one you hated the most is the one I love the most, or the one you love the most is the one I liked least. Like, yeah, but again, the colour palette, look at this colour palette. Pale pink with those dark, moody, I want to say greens, but to me they look grey. Those colours to me look black and grey, and every now and again we get that hint of golden green. Love this colour palette. It's almost like a tattoo as well. You know the temporary tattoos that we put in resin? It's giving me that as well. It is totally giving me that. But yeah, very, very cutesy wootsy with the pink and the red. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much if you've stayed this long. I hope you have felt inspired. And yeah, let me know if it's been worth it. Would you make inlays like this that are so intricate and detailed that you might risk breaking them? Oh, I'm so gutted about that. I will see you all in the next video. Bye.